Crystal Gonzalez. Hey, Crystal, what's your question?
Yeah, hi. I just have I know it's kind of a silly question, but what is cryptocurrency?
Well, I'm glad you asked. There's no such thing as a silly question when it comes to cryptocurrency. Well, cryptocurrency is a medium of exchange of digital currency. Some people say that it's the currency of the future. I say it's the currency of now. Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Crypto Talk Live. I'm your host, Ryan Brown. We're live here in Houston at the Motive Studios. We started a little bit late today, but I want to tell you something. Timing is everything, and I want to know if you guys know what time it is today. Does anybody in here know what time it is, other than on your watch? I doubt it. The time is Valentine's. It's Valentine's Day. That's how my kid says it. So for all you lovebirds out there, I'm going to give you some advice. If you got a special someone, tell them you love them. If you should be doing that every day anyways, but if you hadn't, be sure to tell them that. Now, if you're in love with your crypto, I think now's a good time for you to nurture your wallet. You wanna massage your wallet. You want to kiss your wallet. You want your wallet to know that you love him or her, and you want to see them grow, just like your relationship. So that's my love advice for today's Valentine's Day. And I hope you take that advice, because I wish you and yours love and happiness. All right, so today in studio, I got a special local guest, Chucky, right?
Yes, sir.
See, I'm not going to try to introduce him. I'm going to allow Chucky to introduce himself, but he's a crypto enthusiast, and he's got several projects. He's also a Steemian. And I think it's important that we come together and we give him an opportunity to spread the message and his love for crypto.
Absolutely. Well, no, Brian, I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Really, really excited about it. I love crypto as a whole in general. I love the community, and I always want to try to give back to it. So just a little bit of background. I'll even back up further than that. I actually got talked out of mining Bitcoin back when Bitcoin was probably $300. And probably one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made. I wish I would have gotten in, but it is what it is. I hopped in mid 2017. Started mining crypto, and my love for it just grew from that point on. So I've been mining it, started my own little blog, wrote an ebook, and started a little YouTube channel. So it's been a fun journey, to say the least.
So how'd you get talked out of mining crypto at $300? That's something I'm sure people want to hear.
Sure. Well, I had a friend who actually he used to buy a bunch of Bitcoin and sell it and trade it for different things. And at the time we started talking about it, I was like, oh, let me get in, let me start to, get part of this Bitcoin thing with you. And he's like, no, it's too expensive for your mining rig. You don't have it set up properly to do it. And that was kind of the conversation. I was like, you know what? He's smarter than I am, so I'm just going to take his advice. And I moved on. Probably the dumbest mistake I've ever made in my life. But, it's life. You have other opportunities that come about.
So I guess how long have you been in the crypto? Because you got talked out of mining because someone told you that it was too expensive. So how'd you ease your way out of that whole, no, he's right, it's too expensive, to back into, you know what, I'm going to dive into this?
Sure. So funny enough, I had one of my best friends called me up. I want to say, I'm going to lie to you now, maybe March or May of 2017. And he was like, hey, I was bored. I started looking on the internet about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, and I found this new coin called Ethereum. I was like, I don't know what that is, because at the time I had only heard of Bitcoin. I never heard of anything else. And he's like, I tried to get in at $80, and now it's $120. And I was like, whoa, that's a pretty big swing. So I ended up hopping in, I think, at maybe about 120-ish, and then hopped up to 180. So I was like, whoa, what is this like cryptocurrency stuff? Because I only had heard of Bitcoin before. So that was kind of my first step into the journey, and I just started to devour everything around crypto. taught myself how to mine, set up rigs, and it just kind of snowballed from that point on.
So, with everything snowballing, is it safe to say that you've had an ROI?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My portfolio has more than quadrupled. So, I mean, it's taken dips. Definitely. It's definitely taken dips.
We've definitely all taken dips, but I want to thank you for that introduction. We're going to get more into that a little bit later. But moving forward, we have another guest who's also a crypto enthusiast. He lives in New Hampshire. His name's Nathan Biddle. And I want Nathan Biddle to come on air and have him explain to us how he got into crypto. And, I'll try to give you the little summary of my little intro into crypto, and we'll get the show on the road.
Awesome. Sounds great.
All right, guys. So while we're waiting for... all right, Nathan. See, it's funny. We're having technical difficulties here. Last week, our guy's an IT security expert, and we seem to have issues with his highly secure system dropping him.
Nice.
Perfect. Seems we got disconnected.
It's all good, Nathan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am doing well. Why don't you tell us where you are?
I'm in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Manchester.
Pretty cold.
It's cold?
Yes, indeed.
What's the temp? Did you catch my intro on what time it is?
No, I actually didn't. No.
Okay, well, it's Valentine's.
Oh,
Yeah, so I want to know what, before we get started, tell us what crypto you love. What crypto are you in love with?
Well, it's got to be Steam. I love Ethereum, but it's got to be Steam. Steam's my number one, but Ethereum's great.
You know what? Steam is definitely my number one too, and I'll say that because that was, although I dabbled into consuming information, Steam was the first one that I chose to touch.
Sure.
Yeah. So
I'm in a pretty similar boat.
But so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us your first intro into crypto and what made you stick around.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, probably 2.5 years ago or so, I started reading about the insane price movement of Bitcoin. So I, gave trading a try, and it went all right for me. I mean, definitely some lessons learned. I learned to hodl pretty early on because, we've seen in this market, at least in the last 2 years or so, the hodlers, or those who hold their currencies rather than trying to day trade, they've made out better than the majority of day traders out there. But yeah, I traded for a little while, and then I learned about Ethereum and how you can build decentralized applications on top of Ethereum, and how that ecosystem was just sort of blossoming about 1.5 years ago. ICOs began to come about. And quick tangent, the reason why I love Steam so much, or even more so now, is because I know that they're going to have a similar functionality to Ethereum in that regard once SMTs or smart media tokens come out. But so I started to fall in love with Ethereum too once I realized that you can build applications on top of it. And that's when I started working on my blockchain-based application, which is called Boolean, and it's a news accuracy platform. And I've sort of just been pedal to the metal with that project, as well as my Steam-based projects, such as GainingSteam.com, which is software as a service for users of Steam who want to add a little bit of automation to their current uses of Steam and their current daily tasks.
So let me ask you something. What's the primary objective of Boolean, and can you spell that?
Yes. So it's Boolean, Boolean, as in the data type, true or false, a true or false value, or Boolean logic, which is what search engines like Google use. But the primary purpose of Boolean, the news accuracy platform, is to give real-time feedback to users regarding the social media and news content that they consume. And that feedback is going to give news accuracy data. So it'll point out whether or not there are contradicting sources somewhere on the web. It'll point out whether or not there are any, issues of bias with the source or any red flags as far as the source in the past, if they've been caught, whether recanting stories or changing stories or taking varying stances on matters. So all that information will be displayed to the user as they're consuming content so that they're less susceptible to the dangers of fake news.
So would you say that the idea of Boolean is to, I guess, counteract what's happening with Facebook now, how they're changing their algorithm to make sure that they put in front of you whatever it is that you're more likely to engage with. So is it to combat something like that, or is it something on a more personal level?
Well, it's actually a mix of both. One of the great things about Boolean is it will counter machine learning problems like that, which put people in filter bubbles where they just see content that's going to support their existing opinions. They're never going to see anything that's going to contradict it. And so those are some traps people can fall into when machine learning algorithms are displaying or deciding what sponsored content they see based on their past history of clicking, sharing, and liking. So it's great that's one of the great benefits of Boolean is that it'll counter stuff like that. On a more personal level, and not necessarily, based on my political opinion or anything, but people in general and the controversy surrounding the 2016 election is really what spurred on my efforts here, because it's known that there was misinformation on both sides, or both main bipartisan sides, as well as now we're seeing all over the news, the investigation into whether or not there was any Russian collusion involved. And whatever your political opinions, the most important thing is that we have all the facts. And Boolean's going to, be a centralized way of presenting those facts, but in a decentralized way that allows users to trust Boolean as a neutral arbiter. And that's because of the Ethereum blockchain's transparency and permanency, which is by default the way the Ethereum blockchain works. It's all public and it's immutable, so we're fully auditable at any given time.
Okay, so there's one of the, let's say Pizzagate. You're familiar with Pizzagate?
Yep.
For those of you who don't know, Pizzagate is there was. I will not say if this was misinformation or not, but someone had gotten online and spread some information that there was this pizza parlor that Hillary Clinton was having a town hall at, and that there was a secret pedophilia ring being run in somewhere inside of this facility. And so a guy who was very passionate about the subject, and I'm sure he probably hated Hillary Clinton as well, decided to try to accost her at this pizza joint. So that's Pizzagate. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how would your platform combat something like that from happening?
Sure. Great. Yeah. So that would be an awesome example case or a use case. In the case of something like that, what we do is we have a number of web crawlers that capture content related to various trending and viral topics as a priority, and then less viral topics as a lower priority. But Pizzagate was a very viral news event, so we gather multiple sources all over the web, and then we use the Boolean prioritization model to rank sources' accuracy, to rank their virality, and the virality in that sense, what I mean is the more people who see it, the more of an impact that the news story can have on them. So we take all these existing sources and using machine learning to take a look at the linguistic structure of each of the pieces, we can get cues regarding whether or not a given story is biased. We can get cues whether or not there's contradictions in one story versus another. And then we can provide all of that in a hub for the user who has our software on their phone or is using our web application, or if in their site they're using our web API. They can get all of those sources together and they can get a ranking, which will be sort of a percentage ranking, and it will be the level of likelihood that this is misinformation or this is false, and it will point out like factors such as if there's contradicting information, and then it will also have available many different sources that you can look at, which will give you a clearer and more broad picture of the entire issue rather than just one source. If, for example, all you do is watch Fox News or all you do is watch CNN, both of those have specific bias issues that have been shown in the past to be extremely blatant and flagrant. So if that's your main news that you consume, you're only going to get one side of the story at any given time, and we're going to provide a comparison of those two different sides, and then we're going to provide sources that might be less extreme politically, as well as the two extremes, for example, CNN and Fox.
Okay. So now when it comes to generating an original news story, can anyone go on the platform and generate like their own original news story? Let's say that someone's a citizen journalist, if you will, investigating some sort of government overreach. Would your platform allow them to post directly onto the platform, or would it be searching for, like, is it more like a web crawler? I guess because you said it's centralized, but it's decentralized information on a centralized platform, which is similar to how Steemit is. You know, yes. Steemit is a centralized. It's a centralized social media platform on a decentralized blockchain. So, how comparable is it to Steemit, I guess?
So, at least with the use case you were mentioning, users absolutely will be able to add additional sources or additional news articles, because what Boolean's going to do is it's going to use AI, it's going to use machine learning in order to get a piece of the picture. But there are certain things that can't be necessarily captured by AI or necessarily captured via automatic testing. And in those cases, users who can contribute to fact-checking and can contribute additional information, they're going to be able to collect actually BooleanCoin as a reward. And then additionally, they'll be able to upload content, and that content will be visible to all users of the platform. So one person can give that additional new information, and then everyone will be able to see it. But that's just one example. It's not quite like Steemit. It'll be sort of, well, it's like Steemit in that you can post, but it's more of like a data analytics hub. So you're going to get data metrics in it, and then you're also going to have, there's going to be a main section that has trending news stories. And you can view and filter your view based on what's more viral and what's not.
So and how can you maintain everything on the platform to where it's legitimate news? And as in legitimate news, I'll say there's a platform that some people may or may not be familiar with called Nextdoor. Nextdoor is like a Facebook or social media for your neighborhood. And after the Astros won the World Series, I sent out an urgent alert to everybody in Houston, letting them know that the Astros just won the World Series. You know, so like it wasn't a legitimate urgent alert, but at the same time, you know, because I had access to the platform, I was like, oh, this gives me an opportunity to express myself on an urgent level.
Sure. Yeah, so the way that's going to work, our Boolean prioritization model, we have a ranking system, and that's actually an evolving ranking system because the prioritization model actually evolves using machine learning as well to become more efficient. But what happens there is we, for example, are going to prioritize political and financial and technological information in a higher tier. Something like sports or entertainment is going to by default be a little bit lower, but still something that we capture. But so we rank in that regard. And then additionally, you mentioned that in a given area, something might be more important to a populace. So we can also track based on your location. So there might be, you might get a slightly different view depending on if you're in the south or northeast or, you know, in California. And those different regions, you might get slightly different news because we're going to be testing and we're going to be blocking off different sort of virality sectors. So something might be viral in a given region and not viral in another region. And so we may display different information by default to you if you're in a different region. But then you also have that ability to filter so you can get whatever view you need.
So I guess I want to ask Chucky, our in-studio guest, so what do you gather from this so far? I mean, do you see the problem, and do you see it as a solution?
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, there's always an issue with the news being biased. I mean, that's something that we're all stuck or used to, I guess, right now. And I don't know. I think at this point in stage in life, we're all getting to the standpoint of saying, like, we want to be able to not just be spoon-fed this stuff, but we want to know, like, really what's happening out there, rather than people behind the scenes picking and choosing information. And I think that's why steaming at cryptocurrency and the thing that you're working on actually has some, valid use to it, because there's so many sides to things, and there's always two sides to a story. Everybody always says one thing, but there's really another side to it. And I see this being, a very interesting project. I think it definitely could, grow wings and go someplace. So yeah, I'd be interested in checking it out for sure for myself.
Yeah. So I mean, I definitely agree as well. Because for years I spent time watching mainstream news, and then I got to a point where I would listen to Alex Jones or Infowars, and then I'd listen. Yeah, I'm weird, I know. And I'd listen.
No, I mean he has a huge demographic that loves him. So.
Exactly. And then I'd listen to like Amy Goodman and Democracy Now! And one of the things that I noticed is there's a few things, they would always cover the same thing, but they would cover it differently. And then if you watch the news, like CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, what you would notice is everyone was still talking about the same thing. Like, they were just talking about it from their perspective, putting their spin or twist on it. And no one was just giving you the information and allowing you to decide for yourself. They would just tell you, like, for instance, one of the things that Amy Goodman does is she has this term, I'm not sure if this term is popular, but it's called a trans activist. And that's a term that she's started using lately. Another one is anti-abortion. If I remember correctly, it used to be pro-life, pro-choice. But now she's started using a term called anti-abortion, which I found to be interesting. And also anything that happens with weather, Amy Goodman says that it's a product of climate change. So like the truth is kind of always somewhere in the middle. And I think people as a whole really... I can't say that people do want to know. Some people want to live in that bubble, and some people want to be told something to make them feel good.
Yeah.
And we know that that's true, but I think as one of the cornerstones of our human social interaction is truth. Like everybody seeks truth, even if we lie to ourselves and just want to be part of the choir that's being preached to, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So,
I know. Yeah, and I mean, our platform obviously isn't for everyone. You mentioned there are definitely going to be some people who they'd rather watch, CNN. They'd rather just watch Fox News, and that's fine. They can feel free to do that. But I know that there are some people who just want to get, the clear facts, and they don't want that spin. They don't want to see that spin every single time.
exactly. So this is something that just popped in my mind. Let's say WikiLeaks and Julian Assange and all those types of things. Could that type of information live in perpetuity on the blockchain? Like instead of leaking, because that's another thing that was annoying about this last election was how an organization which is supposed to be, I guess, voice of the people, by exposing government secrets, were in fact, they were doing it in a controlled manner, clearly to invoke some sort of reaction. There was a desired effect that they wanted, other than just to release the truth. But I believe that in the beginning, the idea was we're going to put this information out there and let everybody know, like, this is what's going on. But now it's happening like, oh, we have this information, we'll show such and such this information about such and such. And so I like the idea of having something where, I guess, citizen journalists, if you will, could go and, if they have access to some information, they can just place it out there, and then it just can't be taken down.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And you're absolutely right. I mean, WikiLeaks, ideally, and probably from the get-go, the philosophy was supposed to be, bring all the information to the people. But you're absolutely right. There have been at least some accusations of it having been used as a weapon, or some bias being used in what content is sent out and what isn't. But as far as stuff existing on the blockchain in perpetuity, I think that I can't imagine a world where blockchain is heavily integrated, where one of the main use cases isn't news being on the blockchain. I mean, news being on the blockchain is like, it's a marriage made in heaven. That gives automatic accountability, gives automatic auditability and responsibility to journalists. You're not able to go back on your word. You can't backtrack or pretend that you didn't write a story. So I think news has to end up on the blockchain. That's at least my opinion on the matter. If the blockchain movement continues, I can't see news not going on there. I can't see healthcare information maybe not going on there to some degree. And I definitely can't imagine that there won't be some push for political documentation, political movement, paper trails of political campaign contributions. Can't imagine that won't live on the blockchain at some point, as long as this movement continues to gain traction.
Exactly. In fact, I came across a story last night about one of the new editorial board members for, I believe it's Time Magazine. So her tweets, she got hired at 3 p.m. and fired at 10 p.m. And when she got hired, a lot of people on Twitter just started, obviously, I'm not sure like what search tool they use, but it seems that people can go through Twitter and find anything. And I think that's funny because a lot of people tend to forget, like, the same thing that you put on social media platforms, like, they can live there forever. But what's interesting, however, is some of her tweets were being removed after it ended up on the news that she was fired. Fired over tweets from 2014. Mind you, this happened like 2 days ago. So I think what really trips me out is how those platforms, they do have the right to, it's their platform, so they have the right to control what you see, how you see it, how you consume the information, if you give them that right. And so I like the idea of something just, it's always stuck there. Like there's something, which I guess I won't say it on air, but there's something that I was sharing yesterday. True event, happened in Houston, have a video of it, but I was sharing it to some appropriate parties. But fear of, fear of retribution or, someone getting in trouble, the information, the post was taken down. And I was like, all right. I mean, it's not anything that's NSFW. It's just a real situation that I happen to be next to and take a video of, and just to think that someone suppressed my free speech was quite daunting. Mm-hmm. So you think? Do you think that this would be and I'm asking Chucky, do you think that this would be a solution, I guess, to our First Amendment rights?
Well, yeah, I mean, anytime, I laugh at, steaming the blockchain in general because it's like a scary thing at the same time. Because once it's out there, then it's almost impossible to reverse. And so that's kind of a scary thing. But at the same time, too, there's accountability that comes with that. And it holds people, so you can look back and say, one of the things I was always taught, if you're doing a deal, like put it in writing. Don't do it verbally. And I think this is the same concept. It's like it's in writing now and it's forever there, like etched into the blockchain. So yeah, I think that's an important thing moving forward, especially when it comes to politics. And like you talked about for not fundraising, but the contributions and things of that sort. Where is the money going? And for voting, is my vote being counted correctly? And there's so many different applications of different things that this can be tied into. For the better of the people. And I look at it too like as a freedom thing. I think everybody inherently wants more freedom. And I think that, opening up the doors to see the truth and to have the freedom to talk and say whatever you need to say and to get it out there, especially in countries that are suppressed, where people are more suppressed than here in America. I think it's a beautiful thing. I don't know how it's going to, actually look down the road, but I think we're moving at least in the right direction.
So, and I definitely have to agree with that. How it's a scary thing that what you put out can live forever. in this digital world, and not like Facebook or Twitter can be taken down. And so I guess if you're just joining us and you don't know what we're talking about, so on the blockchain, everything goes through a series of confirmations, public ledgers, if you will, which once they're decentralized. So there's this huge mechanisms of systems that are tied together to send data, and as that data goes through, it gets confirmed, but it's decentralized, so it's living on the blockchain in the cloud would be another way to explain it. And then ultimately, it can't be taken down. So you don't have someone at Facebook who can press a button and delete this whatever post you made, or you don't have someone at Twitter who can go and deactivate your account. So that's what makes this blockchain technology so
awesome.
So awesome. Like people are
scary.
so drawn to it for that reason, because there's so many different ways. Not just cryptocurrency is just one aspect of the blockchain. That's literally just the currency side, and so many people look at it and think that there's just money, but no, there's government accountability, there's personal accountability, there's this new way of thinking that just seems to be out of this world, and everybody's mind is a lot of us who are into cryptocurrency or blockchain technology, we all seem to be thinking on the same plane. And a lot of us come for political reasons, some come for personal or financial reasons, but at the end of the day, it's that technology that creates that accountability and creates like a new path moving forward for regular people like ourselves who, we weren't born into families of wealth, or, we didn't go to Ivy League schools. I don't know. Did you go to an Ivy League school? Not that it would matter.
I went to University of New Hampshire. So.
I went to the University School of Hard Knocks. Totally kidding. I went to school to be a pilot, but that's for another time. But yeah, so that's one of the things that that's driving this technology forward. And I think that's like, what other projects do you have other than the news accountability?
So I was mentioning GainingSteam.com, and on the note of people having sort of upward socioeconomic mobility, Steam is great for that, and GainingSteam.com is sort of giving even a little bit more power to those users. So we provide cheap solutions for automation, quite cheap in comparison, and this audit in comparison to the alternative, which is to invest quite a bit into the Steemit platform so that your vote's worth more, and in turn you're going to gain more money. But if you use automation, you can make it so you can get a lot more votes, and in turn a lot more steam, and so your social blogging can be that much more effective, even if you don't have a lot of starting capital. So GainingSteam.com does that.
So
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Does it automatically do posts for you? Can you schedule posts with it?
Yeah, and you can also automatically promote posts too.
Okay. Very cool.
So how much does it cost to join?
So it's an automation suite, and for the non-enterprise support version, I believe currently it's $19.99 actually, and then it's $99.99 for total enterprise support for your lifetime. So any updates to it you're going to automatically get, and then if you have any support questions, you can email us, and we're happy to help with that.
How many users do you have on Gaining Steam?
It hasn't picked up as much traction as Boolean has. We have probably 20 to 30. It's fairly new, and but Boolean's definitely had a lot more traction. We've had a lot of purchases of BooleanCoin already, and I know that platform, which actually we consider it a product of GainingSteam.com since GainingSteam.com came first, but we think there's going to be a lot more traction for that. There's been a lot. So. And then I'm also organizing 2 blockchain conferences in New England. And we're getting a ton of interest with that. A lot of businesses, local businesses, and software companies are partnering up with us for that. So,
will you fly us out there?
We're ready.
To be speakers, we can talk about that, right?
Yeah, man. That's
I love fly us out.
Yeah, I'll fly us out. But you pay for the gas.
How much more funding we can get?
So, with these conferences that you're talking about doing, where will they be? And I know right now they're just an idea phase, but where do you think they will be, and what do you think they're going to cover? What's the scope of that right now?
Sure, yeah. So they're actually going to be for all interest levels and I guess academic levels as far as blockchain is concerned. So anyone who goes there can benefit. They're definitely going to be in Boston, Massachusetts, and Manchester, New Hampshire. Manchester, New Hampshire is the largest city in New Hampshire, and Boston is Boston, of course, as you know. But so we're going to have speakers who cover topics from Blockchain 101, so the basics of blockchain. You can learn everything there, an hour, and you can learn the fundamentals of how it works and how to get acquainted with it. There's probably going to be some Bitcoin ATMs there for sort of a wow factor. We're going to have exhibitors, which will probably a lot of them will be ICOs. So it's a great way for ICOs to get noticeability and network with other blockchain professionals and companies so they can help cross-promote each other and potentially partner together to form stronger alliances. But most importantly, we'll have speakers who do stuff from Blockchain 101 all the way up to blockchain in healthcare, more niche cases, blockchain in politics, anything like that. Hope we're going to get some YouTube personalities. I'm in contact with a few of them. They'll be there, and it's just going to be a great time. Exhibitors galore, probably you could see 100 or more ICOs. So, and this could be in the very early stages too. So for early investors, as you know, there's been so much success when coins hit exchanges that early investors can gain a lot of money. So if you were to go to one of these conferences and you see a great ICO, diamond in the rough, you can really get a lot out of it.
So here's one of my thoughts. This is just me throwing an idea. I'm sure you've probably thought this through, but you were talking about having Bitcoin ATMs. So if you're doing something that has a lot of beginners or people who are, because there's a lot of people who've never touched it. They hear about it, they see it on the news, but they haven't touched it yet because it's intimidating, or it can be intimidating. Is people can use their USD or whatever fiat currency to purchase a ticket, and then in turn, what they're really purchasing is a paper wallet. And then, you give them that paper wallet, and so let's say their little $50 ticket or whatever is actually turned into $50 worth of Bitcoin. Just okay, an idea.
That's a cool idea. Yeah, maybe we could get something like that going. I was mentioning too. Oh yeah, that's another really important thing. I think a lot of ICOs don't really fail. They don't really take into account. A lot of ICOs out there aren't accepting anything but cryptocurrency in order to get some in return. So I find that projects can really do a lot of good by accepting, credit and debit. Boolean, for example, you can buy with your credit or debit card, and we walk you through the whole process of wallet creation and everything. But I think it's important that people can use fiat to sort of jump into cryptocurrency and start to learn about it.
So, quick question: why do you think that is? Why do you think that most of them aren't accepting the fiat and just going to crypto?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of things. Two main things that I think contribute to it are a lot of people probably feel like there's more legitimacy in that when you do it with just crypto, or I guess sort of more. It's sort of tribal, like you're part of the club if you just do it in crypto. That said, another thing I think too, at least in the early days of it, had to do with people not wanting to lower their risk for legal problems.
Gotcha.
I think at this point, since cryptocurrency's actually been established as its own form of money, at least Bitcoin has. Mm-hmm. So at this point, you're not really mitigating risk by not accepting fiat, since Bitcoin is has the same legal risk at this point.
Right.
So, and I'm glad you asked that question, Chucky, because when I met Ned, I told him that my goal was to get people to be able to turn their fiat easily in the crypto and their crypto easily in the fiat to make it interchangeable. My personal belief is that as the more the currency moves, the more value it has. unless, of course, you're using it as a long-term stored value product. So, like in terms of like Steam dollars or Ethereum or Litecoin, Litecoin, low transaction fees, pretty fast turnaround time for confirmations. So I think it's a great idea to accept fiat for whatever ICO it is, but I also feel like initially that's what brought out a lot of the tricksters or the scam artists or whatever, because there was a lot of people who, there's a lot of projects that nothing came of it and they couldn't technically be touched, but some people were still able to. That, I think that's kind of what pushed us to this whole point of people talking about, or politicians, I guess, talking about regulating. We need to start regulating cryptocurrency. I think some of their buddies lost their money thinking they were going to get a huge return, and they're like, you know what, we need to regulate that, guys. I don't know if they were worried about you and I, us losing money, but they were definitely concerned about themselves and their buddies.
Yeah.
They probably will never tell us, but I'm sure some of these politicians probably lost money.
Yeah.
Some of these big time ICOs.
Yeah.
I had a guy in a few months ago, and we got on the topic of scams, how scams exist on ICO, and I was like, have you ever been scammed before? And then this is a pale guy, and then he got paler, and I didn't even, and so he was like, yeah, I've been scammed before, and we started talking about it, and all of a sudden he got quiet. He was like, I'd rather not discuss this on air. And so I don't know how much money he lost, but thankfully, I've yet to be scammed. All the any crypto that I've lost has been user error.
Yeah.
So
easy to do too.
Yeah, it is easy to do. If anyone of you
it's important that there's a good solution to that at some point.
Now, earlier I asked you, look, I'm taking my hat off. So some of you know I listen to country music. Tim McGraw. If you know Tim McGraw, he always wears a black hat. And you don't know he's bald until paparazzi catches him. So I'm not bald. I don't believe I have a receding hairline, but I'm just proving everybody that.
Gotta grow it while you got it.
Yeah, that I have hair. Might as well show it while I have it. But we had talked about which coin you love, and you told us Steam. Steam was the one that you're in love with. So before we bring the segment to an end, I want to know, what coin do you think we should avoid? You can give us 3.
Okay, 3 to avoid. That's pretty tough. A lot of the really popular ones, I think, have futures in different regards. I personally probably would avoid Stellar Lumens, which was created by the same guy who created Ripple. I think Ripple has a really bright future. Now, I know that's not necessarily a popular opinion because people don't like the fact that it is sort of centralized, and that a lot of banks want to adopt it. But just practically, because banks won't adopt, I think Ripple will do okay. And I think because of Ripple's success, Stellar might take the back burner at some point and may fade out. So I'm going to avoid Stellar anyway.
Okay, so you don't think that Stellar is just a terrible idea. You just think that Stellar is going to fall to the wayside.
Yeah, of Ripple. Yeah, I mean, they're both great ideas, but I think Ripple will win the day in the end. That's just from what I've seen.
All right, Nathan. And before we head out, I want everybody to know you can find Nathan at steemit.com/@Biddle, and go ahead and tell us the rest of your other social media on how people can find you. Well, and just let us know. We want to know.
Sure, yeah. So there's a gamingsteam.com page on Facebook, so you can go there. You can also follow twitter.com/@BooleanCoin. And then you can, if you have any questions, you can go to boolean.news. That's BOOLEAN.NEWS, and you can send an email using the email, which is admin@boolean.news. And I'm happy to get back to anyone if they have any questions about the product or any questions about the way, creating a wallet or purchasing would go.
Okay, I appreciate you coming on air. I like connecting with other Steamians, and I like, the project that you're doing. It's definitely something that I could stand behind. So we'll be sure to share all your contact information and the projects that you're working on, not only on our social media posts outside of Steemit, but our ones on the blockchain as well. And I'll get with you after the show, and we'll link up.
Awesome.
Thanks, Nathan.
For having me, Ryan.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Nice to meet you.
Bye, guys. Absolutely. Nice to meet you.
All right, guys. So we just finished our first segment of the show. Nathan has left the building. But Chucky, anything? What'd you think about his project?
Oh no, it's very, very interesting. He seems like a very bright guy, and that's a whole nother level of cryptocurrency and blockchain that's even above and beyond my expertise. The fact that he's building things and giving back to the community, I love that. And I've said before, I love the crypto community. I think as a whole, like, it's a very unique group of people, and it's kind of a weird way to say. I'm almost sad because I feel like once it starts to get, it's almost like finding a band that like before it goes popular, and then you get irritated once it gets popular style. I'm almost sad to see it grow, but at the same time I'm happy because I think it'll change people's lives. So I'm glad that he's definitely giving back to the community in multiple ways.
Exactly, and I like that he's building something that's not currency related.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the exchange of information.
That technology.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that highlights the technology and not the financial aspect. So people can start to see that this is more than just money.
Mm-hmm.
There's a technology and a future behind it.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, guys. So we're about to go to a break, and when we come back, Chucky and I are going to sit here and talk about his project and the projects that we have going on. So we'll see you in a couple minutes.
The Olympic Games, we went to a couple of exchanges in Seoul and found out that, in fact, trading here in South Korea is a lot more sophisticated. If you're looking for reasons why crypto prices have been so volatile, look no further than South Korea. Nearly a fifth of global crypto trading happens in this country. Not just institutions, but moms and pops, flocking to exchanges like BitThumb, Corebit, and Coin1, which make retail trading easier than ever. With customer service desks where you can buy and sell, sit on a couch and watch prices on a big board, and access ATMs to liquidate your positions for cash. South Koreans are also flocking to trading apps, a powerful trend in a country where smartphone ownership rates are some of the highest in the world. It's one reason demand and prices have a huge premium here, as much as 40%. Some call it the kimchi premium, and it gives global traders like Clayton Atchison a chance to arbitrage.
Originally, there was a large profit to make because of the difference in the prices. In comparison to USA, sometimes cryptocurrency was at a 40% premium here. So if you bought cryptocurrency, for example, I know people that do this or did this, now it's very difficult. They bought cryptocurrency in the USA and transferred it to Korea, and when you did that, you made 40% on your money.
But with the boom come uncertainties, regulation, rumors of possible trading bans, pressuring prices since the December high of nearly $20,000. South Korean regulators are grappling with ways to forge a coherent regulatory policy. And for traders, it's been one headache after another. Atchison has found his account inaccessible at times, or frozen, forcing him to fly here and monitor it himself.
To be honest, some of our money was like being held in the bank because they wanted to make sure when these regulations came down, some of the money actually got frozen. And the reason they did that was to ensure that companies weren't doing illegal things and using Korea as a mechanism to do that.
What's next? The South Korean government has begun taxing Bitcoin profits and requiring more disclosure on account identities to keep underage kids and potential money launderers from trading. Rules that Wee-Sang Kim, CIO of one of South Korea's largest crypto funds, says are welcome.
Banning cryptocurrency is not a good idea. So I hope Korean government could understand what blockchain is and how important it is.
A balancing act between encouraging innovation and making sure today's crypto traders aren't left twisting in the wind. David and Mike, they have, in addition to all those trading areas where you can sit on the couch, magazines in Korean, of course, all about Bitcoin. You see the logo down here. I can't read it, but there's a few passages in English that say mining your Bitcoin immediately. And we always talk about the fact that the crypto surge is not a U.S.-led phenomenon, and South Korea is a really good example of that. Guys?
Yeah, Carl, I wonder if there's a way to figure, is the popularity over there, is it purely speculative interest? Is there some reason that they've latched on to the kind of theoretical or technology basis of all this stuff? Where does it fit into the culture and everything else there?
I mean, it's obviously a mix, but I would say two things. One, that the people we've talked to have been in it for a pretty long time. I mean, I keep hearing I got in around 2013, 2014. And they're pretty conversant in talking about the blockchain, right? Not just the currencies that are going to the moon or back. They describe it sort of like a tree. They're very good at explaining how the blockchain might one day change commerce. So I think it's maybe a little more fundamental than just a trading run, but time will tell as to whether that long-run technology catches up.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this market update. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about what I see as the significance of the cryptocurrency craze. I think it's obviously very important. It's in the news. It's dealing with a lot of money and a lot of speculation going on. And I don't think anybody has quite figured out exactly what the outcome will be. But I'm not going to deal so much with that part of Bitcoin and the currencies on this visit. But I do want to talk a little bit about monetary history, and I want to separate the two issues of the cryptocurrencies versus blockchain technology, because I think they should be different. I think they're going to develop differently. But I don't want to get into that in detail. I want to talk a little bit about what is the significance of this? Why is it such a big deal? Is it just sort of an accident? Did the technology come along and say we're going to have new money and we're going to have these cryptocurrencies? Or what was the real motivation behind this? And I think we have to understand a little bit about monetary history to realize why blockchain technology has been so successful in getting the attention of people who are interested in an alternative monetary system. I have for years been a strong supporter of competition in currencies, introduced legislation for that purpose, and figured the market is a lot smarter than anything the government can do. And you know, in many ways, that is one of the problems that we have today, because the market is smarter. And money came from the market. It was when the government got involved, when the governments took over, passed legal tender laws and all these regulations, then they developed central banking, that they really messed up what the market always required. But early on in history, people bartered, and it was very, very inefficient. And then probably 3,000 years ago or so, they started using something other than just gross bartering. They started to use an alternative, a substitute. And that substitute was picked early on, and it was picked by the people, and they picked gold and silver, the precious metals. They used other things, but they always used something to represent money. And then governments got involved and decided that they wanted a monopoly. So notoriously, over the many, many centuries, governments got control of it. Sometimes they protected the principle of honest money and using commodities as money, and things worked out pretty well. I think of the time when they had the gold standard, and the Byzantine Empire had the Byzant, and it was gold backed. When they quit backing that up and they started inflating the currency, the Byzantine Empire finally ended, and it was related to this. So governments are notoriously very, very unhelpful when it comes to honest money, because there's a conflict. They get control of the monetary system, and then the money is used to perpetuate big government. The old days and currently today, the control that the Federal Reserve has, it's there to finance government and finance debt, finance special interests, finance the welfare system, until finally we reach a breaking point where the system doesn't work anymore because fiat money doesn't work. So people have thought about, well, what are we going to do? We have to have an alternative. And that's when I think people started thinking about the alternative and put this together, the technology, and talking about a cryptocurrency. And like I said, I'm not going to go into details on this visit, but that is equally important. But I think the point I would like to make is that governments really mess things up. You take the history of our currency, and very early on, our currency was silver as a commodity that backed up our dollar, and it was the Spanish milled dollar. But all of history, when the people get to pick, to evolve away from bartering. They have always picked the metals and other things. I mean, there's times when they pick, cows and products and tobacco and different things, but very cumbersome and is not practical. So always the gold and silver has won out in defining money. So our country started off, and they were very much aware of this history. They had the runaway inflation of the continental dollar, and the founder says only gold and silver should be legal tender, which was a good position to hold. It could have been that they didn't have to do that, but they did. But they said it should be gold and silver. And it was a very imperfect system. They had bimetallism, and there was a lot of alternatives, people printing money and state banks doing different things. So we weren't on an all honest system of a gold or silver standard. But we limped along, but it was relatively good in the 19th century. But in the 20th century, there were several people, the banksters and others, and big government proponents, decided, no, we have to get control of this. And that is, of course, when they were able to orchestrate the taking over of the management of all money by a central bank. And that was 1913, a bad year, connected to the same principle of taking away the wealth of people by having an income tax. But 1913 came on, but the government immediately started debasing the currency, although the dollar was still related to gold. And there was some restraint on the limits of the printing of money. And when they would go off a gold standard, they generally would go back to it and try to honor their commitment. But after 1913, it was more difficult. Our government inflated for World War I and inflated during the 1920s to boost up the economy. And then the banking people understood this, and they saw this as an opportunity to get more control. So what happened in the 1930s? During the Depression, they used this as an excuse for governments to get even bigger. And that was when they decided, we'll default. We're printing too much money. We want to print a lot more. The people don't have the right to own gold. And in 1933, Roosevelt took away the right to own gold. But the continued devaluation and destruction of the dollar that was as good as gold continued. After 1933, the dollar was refinanced from $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce, and that lasted until 1971. But the American people weren't even allowed to own gold, all the way up until 1975. So there was ongoing, steady erosion of the currency. And alongside this, the problems grew. Big government surveillance, intrusion, wars, financial disequilibrium, a distribution of wealth which is unfairly accomplished, and making the middle class poorer and the poor poorer and the rich richer. So that has happened. And even today, we're told that everything is rosy, the stock market is up, and don't worry, the government's going to take care of us. But there is handwriting on the wall that there is a lot of discontent, and the people know there is a problem. There's political turmoil in this country, and it has infiltrated into the social order. You have cultural Marxism going on. It's very unstable. My point is that debt and big government eventually leads to this, where an honest currency like a gold standard will be destroyed. First they take legal tender laws, then they debase the currency, then they have more rules and regulations, and then they enhance government and big corporations and banks until the people get really upset. And that's where we are today. I think there's much more knowledge about the fragility, not only of our system, but the world financial system. I think people are very much aware of this. Otherwise, I don't think people would be all of a sudden be so interested in a new, fantastic cryptocurrency that's going to solve all our problems and pumping in billions of dollars as a solution. Now, my big concern will be that we have to realize how money came into being. And it's always been in the marketplace. It was never fiat. It was never declared by the government that we will be told that we are going to use paper money. Some people say that, paper cryptos or computerized cryptos are no different than the dollar. In one sense, that is true. They're fiat. But is fiat good? And automatically, well, fiat dollars, fiat currency by governments is not good and always leads to trouble. But we live in an age where I think there's so many problems out there, and it's related to the currencies, and people are begging and pleading for something. And this has been offered up. A lot of people don't fully understand it. There's technology that is very, very interesting. It's going to be around for a long time, and that's blockchain technology. But the question will be that due to the chaos that we have and the need for sound currency, will that chaos be answered by having a fiat currency designed in the marketplace? And that, of course, would be crypto. But the point I really want to make is the significance of this looking, and the enthusiasm and the excitement and the dollars involved is a telltale sign of the serious nature of the financial system. And it is sort of, letting us know what the future will bring. And it's going to bring some chaos, because this won't be sorted out easily. Nobody's going to say, well, the dollar's losing credibility and we're going to end the dollar and the central banks are going to disappear and everybody's going to have a computer and things are going to be okay. It's not going to be that way. I think that we have to be more careful. But my main urging is to study and try to understand the best one can about where money came from, and it didn't come from government, and legal tender laws don't work, and declaration, just because somebody says it has value and untested in the marketplace, that's going to be a real challenge. But obviously we live in a new age, a different age, and the monetary system may evolve differently than what we've ever seen before. But I still think one of the most important things when we think about money is think about how it originated, where it came from, and how government has messed it up, and that we have to think through clearly and as accurately as possible on what the alternative will be. And for me, I think the more the people can decide this, yes, there'll be a lot of mistakes. There'll be ups and downs. Some people are going to get hurt. The only thing I suggest strongly about the transition going from where we are today and the destruction of our central banking system and the dollar is that we go cautiously and that nobody be permitted to commit fraud. If they're going to be fraudulent and deceive the people, then I think that makes it off limits. But I do believe very strongly that money really should have a value attached to it on something that you can touch, but that doesn't rule out the fact that maybe the people would accept something differently. But in the next year or two or three, I think we'll find out what comes of this. But we have tried, the gold standard. We tried a standard where we defaulted on giving the gold back to the American people. We defaulted in 1971. We went on to the dollar at $35 an ounce, and we've ushered in this age from 1971, the age of fiat, the biggest boondoggle fiat currency system the world has ever seen, a single fiat currency that runs the world. That, I believe, is coming to an end, but I think that the solution to this is a little more complex, and I would still argue the case that ultimately money has to have something tangible, something you can touch, ultimately, although not on an everyday experience. During the gold standard, if you had a certificate, but the certificate was good because it was convertible, but it has to be convertible, has to have a definition, and it has to be a measurement of value too. That will be a real challenge. So once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today on this update and my attempt to try to explain what I see as the significance of the cryptocurrency craze, because I think it's very significant, and the results will be coming out, in a systemic manner in the next few years, and we're going to be surprised. I find it interesting and fascinating, and a lot of other people are thinking about this, and I look forward to continuing trying to further understand it and do my best to explain it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.
Hey guys, welcome back to Crypto Talk Live. This is the second half of today's show. Like I told you earlier, today is Valentine's Day. So if you don't have anybody to love, but you got a wallet to love, I want you to open up that wallet, look at it, and tell it something nice. Tell it looks pretty, even if it doesn't look pretty. No matter how new your love affair is with crypto, today we're going to treat it like it's going to be something that's going to last forever. So basically, we just got through listening to Ron Paul, his take on the cryptocurrency craze, what it means for the economy, and I guess for lack of a better word, his disdain for fiat currency. So I wanted to touch on something. It's something that comes up pretty often, and I just want to give my take. The other day, I had an opportunity to sit down with someone, and someone who's running for U.S. Congress, and they told me their take on cryptocurrency. And what he did was he cited Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution. So those of you that know me, I carry a little pocket Constitution. I got that from HMNS. And can you get that up on the screen so they can read it? So what we're going to do is we're going to pull up Section 1, Article 10, and explain to the viewers, listeners, what we think, or at least what my personal opinion is, especially based on the information that I got from the gentleman who's running for Congress. So it looks a little skewed, but let's just go ahead and read it. All right, so Article 1, Section 10 states that no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Okay, so my take on that is that when the forefathers were writing the Constitution, they were tasked with creating a currency to be used in our, I guess, in our society and through our governing body, and that currency was the initial U.S. dollar that was backed by precious metals, aka the gold standard. So if government tries to regulate cryptocurrency, indeed what they would be doing is going against the initial Constitution, because they've already created that currency, which is the U.S. dollar, which is, today it's not backed by the gold standard anymore, but it's still the U.S. dollar, and it's regulated by the government. So my take is that government doesn't have, the expressed constitutional right to dictate how private commerce would take place with cryptocurrency. So just throwing that in there, because I know every now and then people say, well, isn't that illegal, or isn't that what drug dealers use? I mean, it's an international currency that's not centralized, so it would be very difficult for any governing body to regulate that as a form of tender or payment, especially for the U.S. If you look at our tax codes and how money exchanges hands here in this country, it would just be incredibly difficult. So I'd like to hear your take. So if you are listening or watching, pick up your phone and call 1-844-722-8224. Now, moving on, in studio, I have Chucky with me. Not Chucky the doll, You know, Chucky, he's a real human being, and Chucky he's a blockchain enthusiast, and he's got a few projects that he's working on. So I want to get your take on, you know, what was the birth of these, what are these ideas, what are these projects, and tell me how these ideas were conceived, and, you know, what do you think the problem is, and what solution do you think that your projects solve?
Gotcha. All right. Well, I know I did a quick recap earlier, but I'll tell you real quick how I got into cryptocurrency in the first place. I was talked out of mining Bitcoin back when it was about $300. So pretty big mistake. But moving forward, I got talked back into cryptocurrency when Ethereum was about $80. And it just kind of started to snowball from there. I've always been a computer gamer. I've built my own computers for a long time. And I was like, well, you know, hey, if I can make, you know, some fun money on the side by mining it, let me go ahead and hop into that. So started creating my own rigs, started just researching just every night. And from there, you know, I started a little blog called Cryptodiaries. And it's almost like a Drudge Report style. I don't have the time and patience and energy, if you will, to, you know, write my own articles in depth. I think there are plenty of other blogs out there that do that well. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to find quality articles. I'm going to throw it up there. And I started doing that for a bit, and I started posting on Facebook. And next thing I know, I was that friend. I was that friend that just happened to be, you know, the weird guy at first, you know, but when that, you know, in July when everything was kind of low and then it started to pick up, everybody went back and was like, oh, well, you were talking about crypto back when, you know, before it was kind of big to them. And all of a sudden I had friends from college who hadn't talked to me in 10 years call me and say, hey, you know, like, tell me about crypto. What's going on? And I realized almost every single day for about 2 weeks straight, I had friends either texting me, calling me, messaging me on Facebook. So I sat down, I was like, you know, I want to make a really easy, you know, my ebook is what I call it, but I put together, it's about 85 pages worth of data, and I try to explain it as well as I possibly could, kind of explain it like your five, if you will, style, to try to help people out. And again, things just kind of started to snowball from there. You know, more people started to download it and ask me all these questions. I started a YouTube channel just for fun. It's not that old yet, but so it's just, right now, it's sort of still a hobby. I love every aspect of crypto, from the mining to the investing side to even, I'm starting to learn the technical analysis side of things. But, you know, I just think that the future of blockchain and cryptocurrency is actually changing everything about our lives. And I think the majority of the mainstream public they don't even get it yet. And I think I don't know when that'll hit, but at some point I think it'll hit us really hard. And I think it'll be beneficial. But it'll be interesting to see in a couple years from now how that'll change our lives. So
you decided to write in a manual or an ebook. Mm-hmm. What's your ebook called? What did I call my ebook? I think I called it The Ultimate Bitcoin Guide. I used Bitcoin because that's kind of a key phrase. Yeah. I mean, if I walked down the street and I asked somebody, hey, what's cryptocurrency? They might go, well, what are you talking about? Or Ethereum. But if I say Bitcoin, most people have heard
Exactly.
of
it. Bitcoin, I mean, although technically not synonymous, the term itself is synonymous mm-hmm. with anything blockchain, anything cryptocurrency. I find it interesting that you decided to write a manual. So why? Like, what was the motivation behind the ultimate Bitcoin e-guide?
Well, I realized that my time, just took some on our choke time. I realized that a lot of my time was taken up,
You're good, man.
Taken up trying to explain things to people, and it was the same thing over and over and over again. So my thought process was, if I create this free manual, then I can basically hand it to them and say, hey, go ahead, read this. If you have questions, you can always come back to me. I'm always there to help, especially my friends. I'm trying to help them out. And so if they have a question or they can't really understand the answer, then they come back to me. But, in the meantime, they can go back through the ebook and it answers, I feel like it answers pretty well a lot of the basic questions from, what is a wallet? How do I set my wallet up? How do I get my first, dollar into Bitcoin and purchase it and then go from there? And so I kind of staged it in steps of, the novice level, an intermediate level, an advanced level. And, I've been tweaking as time goes on just to make sure, because everybody's at a different level, and so I'm trying to make sure I cover all points evenly as best as I possibly can.
All right, and for those of you who don't know, Cryptodiaries .com is where you can find the ebook. It's free, by the way. It's a free guide. I've downloaded it myself. I've read through it, and he's right. It explains like you would to a 5-year-old or someone with absolutely no knowledge. It explains to them about cryptocurrency, how to create a wallet, how to turn that first dollar into a cryptocurrency. And stuff like that is important because just like he's saying, everyone has reached out to him to say, oh, you're that guy who knows about crypto. Well, I'm going to call you and say, hey, I want to invest in it, or I want to know more about it. I'm that same guy in my little circle of influence. You know, I get phone calls, text messages, emails, Facebook messages, all kinds of messages from all over the place of people asking me for information. So I think probably moving forward, I'll just start sending them a copy of your book.
Send them on out, yes. Send them on out.
Until it starts costing something.
So there you go.
But I mean, hey, you know, good knowledge, all good knowledge costs something. You know, knowledge is power. You know, and people want to know about crypto, and I think that's kind of the solution that solves. Now, I want to kind of delve into the mining aspect. Okay. You mentioned earlier that you got into mining. So how exactly, explain to the listeners and the viewers, how does one get into mining? Let's say that we leave here today and I want to start mining Ethereum. Walk me through that process.
Sure. Okay. Well, there are a couple different options. Real quick, there is a cloud-based mining option. I personally don't prefer that option. The returns, in my opinion, aren't that great anyways, and you know, you never know. They could walk away with your money. So I usually stay away from that side of things. So the regular mining, I guess I call it the regular mining, you can have the big players which have massive warehouses, and everybody always comes to me and says, hey, are you mining Bitcoin? And I say, well, no, I don't actually touch mining Bitcoin because the difficulty is just so extremely high and hard that the amount of time, money, effort, and dollars I have to put into it is just not worth it. So for what I did, and it's actually fairly simple, if you don't know how to, the hardware side of things, then, I would say go ahead and just buy a rig online. Do some research, obviously. Always do research because, somebody's definitely you're always going to pay a premium if you buy a prepackaged system. If you know how to build rigs, you really don't have to worry that much about the motherboard other than the slots because you want to put as many GPUs on there as possible. Most people do. You don't really have to worry about the CPU that much or the RAM that much. It really comes down to your power supply and your graphics cards. And once AMD cards versus NVIDIA cards, there's different algorithms. So certain algorithms do well with NVIDIA, certain algorithms do well with AMD. And I usually go to, I think it's called what2mine.com, and it's about as good as you can get when it gives you a breakdown of your profitability as far as your expenses and what you'll make per day and which exchange you can get it on. But for somebody out there, let's say you have a computer, gaming rig, you play games, you play Overwatch, and you can basically take your card, you can do research on which cards work best for certain algorithms and mining. Then from there, the way I started with it is I just started, literally, I went to YouTube and I went to different blogs and I just researched, how to mine a specific coin. A lot of people out there will take you step by step. So I would say the most complicated, after you have the hardware ready to roll, the next step is to figure out which coin you want to mine. And you have to figure out which algorithm you're going to tie into from there. So I think I started off with Sia coin or Sia coin, however you want to pronounce it at the time. And you have to find a mining software for that. So each mining software works differently. The one I chose at the time was called CC Miner. And there's different levels of it. So I have the CC Miner Skunk is the one I'm currently using or was using. You download that software, and I would say the most complicated part after that is you set up what's called a config. So, and you can download these configs, and essentially what the config says is, which software are you currently using? How many devices, meaning how many GPUs are you going to use? You have to plug into their server. And so you basically, and I know I'm giving a lot right now. I apologize for going quickly, but
no, absolutely. I just
want to make sure I'm answering what you're asking.
You're answering the question, and that's the whole idea of the question is for you to literally give a step by step.
Sure. So in a sense, you want to tie to a pool. meaning a pool of people that are mining one particular coin or algorithm. So you can do a solo mining, but most people don't do that nowadays because your return is going to be much lower and worse. So you would find a pool. I like to find pools that have high traffic and high network, what is it called, network hash rate or something of that sort, meaning that the pool combined is doing very well mining that particular coin. So I'd lie to you if I said the one that I'm currently using. I forgot what it's called. I've hopped around to different pools, but I think one was called like Mining Pool Hub. That's one I can remember off the top of my head. You find the algorithm, they give you configuration, you follow that and you plug it in, and then essentially it's a batch file that you run. I think it always has to end in .bat. So you plug it into the software, you run the config, and it just pops up this crazy looking old school like DOS screen, and it starts plugging out these weird numbers, and it'll give what's called hash rate. So each card has a specific amount of hash rate that it can calculate per time. And so if it gives you a yes, typically yes is what it says, that means it's good. If it gives you a boo, that means you've messed up and something's going wrong. And usually the software will just shut down real fast.
Okay.
So it took me a long time as a trial and error, but there are plenty of YouTube videos and articles out there that will give you like step-by-step with pictures of how to do it, exactly what I just went over. I know it's a lot in the last 2 minutes I gave you, but that is literally what you do to start mining.
So when someone goes to the let's say someone goes to Micro Center or Newegg.com or whatever to buy GPUs. What information should they have before they drop money? Because like I have 1080p or 1080 Founders Editions,
right?
And those are pretty expensive. I paid $800 for those when they first came out, and I obviously with the standard. With a standard motherboard, you can get 2 of those with an SLI.
Don't SLI, by the way. I've been told not to SLI when it comes to mining. Gaming, that might be different.
Yeah. Well, I was using it for virtual reality, but let's say for mining, that's about $1,600 that you're going to shell out before mining. So is there any other information someone should have prior to going to grab drop $1,600.
Sure. So, I mean, one of the things, it was definitely something I went into first. I thought, the most expensive card I could possibly find is the best thing you can possibly get. And that's not always true when it comes to mining. A lot of people like the AMD cards. I think it's like the 480s, the 580s, and maybe the 570s. I'd have to look. The Vegas, I think those are the new ones, the 64. And I haven't researched a lot of hardware recently, so, don't hold my feet to the fire totally. But you can research which cards have the how much usage that they use. So like some of the more expensive cards use a lot of power and consumption, and so it's going to cost you more from an electric bill side of things. Where some people like to get the cards that are going to have less usage and a better hash rate. So I know that the 580s are kind of a good bang for your buck in comparison to some other ones. But again, it all gets down to which algorithm you're and which coin you're going to tie into. Whattomine.com, I don't have any affiliation with it, but that one usually is where people go to find out. The RAM on the graphics card actually does affect it. I've been told as time goes on, it's more and more important. So I think all my cards are, I think most of my cards are 1070s, and I have like 8 gigs of RAM on the card, not the motherboard side of things.
Yeah.
So that's what I have.
So you're also, you're talking about running BAT data files. And also installing the config software. What operating system should you be using in order to run the config software?
So the software itself should have 2. Typically, it's either Linux, like Ubuntu, or Windows is typically the 2 options. So you just pick the operating system which you currently have. I believe Windows actually does fairly well still, and there's going to be arguments on both sides for both operating systems, but what I found, I think there's I think it's a blog called like Crypto Mining. I don't know if it's .com or .net, and it's all about just mining in general. And usually they'll explain things in there, and that's how I found my first software. So went to the link, found the software, downloaded it, and it's literally like if you try to open up the executable, it just goes blank. Nothing happens. And so I was like, okay, maybe I did something wrong. Well, come to find out, you have to actually make a config file to tell it how to start, what to mine, and where to mine. So that's what you're telling it, like which server to connect to and which wallet address to send the money to once you're mining. So it is a learning curve, but it's kind of like riding a bicycle. Once you've done it once, you can do it a million times over. And I have 4 different rigs set up currently. And once I created my my config for one rig, I basically just copied and pasted onto the other rig. So it was quick after that.
So you started off with SIA, just for sake of argument.
Right.
And now what coins are you mining?
The current coin I'm mining is called GoByte. I used to make really good money off of GoByte. Unfortunately, the only exchange that or as far as I know, it's on Cryptopia. So I would mine it. Don't send anything to Cryptopia, by the way. If you're mining directly, as far as I know, you don't want to directly mine into Cryptopia. You want to mine to your actual wallet first. That's just Cryptopia specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah, GoByte, so it fluctuates all the time, and I know there are different softwares that will auto-adjust based on the most profitable coin. I personally have never set that up. What I've just done is I've picked the coin that I find typically sits at the top most of the time on whattomine.com. Used to be Zcash, quite often would sit close to the top. GoByte for a while was up to $70, and it would sit at the top, and so I mined it constantly. Now it's dropped down to about $20, so
yeah.
my profits have drastically dropped per day. But GoByte seems to be still pretty good for my setup and my rig. It's a constant tweak. You constantly have to figure out which coins are good for your setup, you know, and by tweaking just little things, I switched even to a new mining software, and I basically, between 2 rigs, got an equivalent of a brand new 1070 by adjusting a couple things. So my hash rate just almost like doubled. So it was, you know, just a little small tweak to make a big difference in your rigs.
So which coin did you say was at 70 and dropped to 20 something?
GoByte.
Okay, so GoByte. I have a question about that.
Okay.
When you were mining GoByte, at whatever, how long did it take you to get one coin?
Oh man.
Just I guess a ballpark.
I think it was about 2 days for a GoByte. I think I was making at one point like $35 a day. So it was about half of one GoByte at the time.
Yeah.
And so I think the difficulty has stayed about the same, but the price of the coin has dropped dramatically. So $35, I'm down to maybe $12 to $15 a day now. So.
Now, when let's say you're mining GoByte on one rig, that's all that you can mine on that one rig at a time?
I mean, technically speaking, no. I think what you can do is you can split it. So let's say you have a rig that has, you know, half AMD cards and half NVIDIA cards. You, in theory, could pick certain devices through the config and say, I want these particular cards to mine this coin on this software, and I want these cards to mine this particular coin on this software. I think that's definitely possible. You can do CPU mining, which it's not really that profitable, except for apparently there is a CPU that just came out that is equivalent to like one, I don't know, 480 or 580. So it's some crazy CPU that they came out with. Yeah.
So this thing, it's always boggled my mind because I tried, Steam obviously was the first coin that I started dabbling with. And so I had an old PC with a decent graphics card.
Okay.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and try to mine Steam. I also didn't understand at that time like the delegated proof of stake and witnesses and things of that nature. But I could never get it to work. You know,
should have called me.
This was before I knew you. But definitely, had I known, you know, I would have definitely given you a shout and see if you could walk me through it. I've since given up on mining because I was like, you know, now I have another PC in the house. It's a pretty expensive PC, and I know that it should, you know, I don't play virtual reality every day. So I think that it should be mining at least while it's just sitting there.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
And technically making money in your sleep.
And that's how I started with it. Basically, I was like, well, if I can just, when I go to bed, I can turn it on to mine, and then when I wake up, I turn it off. And that's how I started kind of that concept.
So have you ever tried mining Steam?
I have not through my own rigs. I did actually through Genesis. I threw $120 at Genesis just like for pure fun, play money. And I actually mined, I think it was about 8 Steam, and then they never sent it to me. And I got an email 3 months later, and they're like, we're still working on it. I still have never received it. But I think I mined like Zcash. It's like nothing. I mean, you know, it's $120 only gets you so far.
So explain to the viewers and the listeners exactly what cloud mining is.
Okay.
You know, like Genesis and, you know, all the other different.
Sure. I mean, as far as I know, so essentially I'll speak for Genesis mining because that's the only one I've actually thrown money at. You go in and you pick a particular coin that you're intrigued by. Now, most people, I would naturally go to Bitcoin. Again, I stay away from Bitcoin because even at the cloud mining aspect, you don't know how big their setup is. They allow you to pick different, what they call hash rates, which is this, for lack of or for a better way to put it, I guess for simplicity, you know, the higher the hash rate, the faster you're going to be receiving that particular coin. Well, I said, you know what? Let me mine a really simple coin, a coin that I can mine quickly, and then just flip it for Bitcoin. And that's what I do with GoByte. I mine GoByte because I can get, you know, maybe 15 or 30 bucks a day and flip it for any coin I want. Where maybe if I just directly mined Ethereum or Bitcoin, I might get maybe $2 a day. You know, so it just doesn't make sense to mine the complicated ones. But essentially, you go onto Genesis Mining and you pick how, you know, the hash rate, the speed at which you're willing or wanting to receive a coin. And then at that point, you just pick a plan, is what they call it. You pay your money, and it just starts instantly mining behind the scenes. You have to have a wallet. So if you have an exchange wallet or a regular wallet, you have to put the address in the back end in there. And then at some point, it will start to just every day just deposit into that wallet. You know, and you can, the kind of, I guess, cool thing about Genesis is I can rotate, depending on the algorithm that I picked in the front end, I can rotate between, I think, Steam, Zcash, Ethereum, Monero, and something else. There's a downtime to it, but you can just rotate like a percentage. So I can say I want, you know, to put half my hash power towards Monero and half my hash power towards Ethereum if I wanted to go that route. So.
Okay, so cloud mining is essentially like someone's mining operation, but you're buying into it, or it's, I guess in a way it's outsourced, if you will.
Right. I mean, you don't, you know, I guess the benefit of it is you don't have to, you know, buy the hardware because it gets expensive, especially nowadays, you know, buy the hardware, set everything up, pay the electricity costs. If something goes down, you got to, you know, fix it yourself. So, you know, you do pay a premium because you're outsourcing that, but at the same time, too, it's kind of a one-stop shop, set up and go. I mean, you know, it's not a bad thing. You're just not going to get the best bang for your buck by doing cloud mining.
Now, you were just talking about how it's gotten expensive. So I just started thinking about ant miners, or you know, so ant miners, for those listeners that don't know, is it's just a turnkey mining solution. At least as far as the hardware is concerned. I'm not too sure if it even comes with software, which I don't believe that it does. But it's just a device that you can buy, you plug up at home, you get the software going, and then you start mining whatever currency it is. Which one do you think like the pre-built rigs are more efficient than GPU rigs? Or
well, they're definitely more profitable, but their shelf life is very, very short typically. And so the ASIC miners, the ant miners, I've never personally, you know, they're more expensive to buy into. And B, the profitability can be great at the very beginning. So I watched, there's a YouTube guy called, oh man, I'm gonna botch his name. Starts with a V, and he's a cool guy. But he recently just bought a new miner, an ASIC miner, and I think he was making like $500 or $800 a day on Siacoin just recently. But he's like, you have to understand, you know, if let's assume his investment was $3,000 for that particular rig. 4 months from now, that thing might be completely obsolete, like literally just a paperweight, you know. So that's the risk you take when you buy the dedicated ASIC miners, that they could go obsolete very quickly. Where, you know, if I bought, you know, 4 1070s, I could build a sweet gaming rig, you know, and do virtual reality afterwards, and they're still used to it. And I can sell it if I wanted to, because, you know, there's a huge population and desire for those cards, where that ASIC miner, I mean, that's a very small niche that you're diving into.
So have you ever considered turning that into a business?
I've thought about it, but there's a pretty decent sized initial cost. But I still believe we're so early in the crypto game that there's still plenty of money to be made from that financial side. So I've thought about it, haven't done it yet.
When you say that there's a significant cost with starting it, which costs are you referring to?
Just the purchase of, well, graphics cards are a lot more expensive now. If you're constantly turning your crypto back into fiat and paying your electric bills and paying your hardware and all that stuff, there's definitely profit to be made there, especially if you fine tune your setups. But guys will spend tens of thousands of dollars and you can make good money right now, but it's a high initial investment.
So, do you think it's too high of an investment for the user, or for the business owner? Because I guess the way I'm looking at it is, I know that some people listening and watching will have an interest in mining. In fact, people ask me about mining all the time, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Go to YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the truth is, obviously, there is a strong interest for people to get into crypto.
Sure.
So there's options. You can go to an exchange and you could put your money on the exchange. You could go to do something like Steam it and start posting and earning crypto that way, or you could build a mining rig. Either way, I think in order for someone to earn money in cryptocurrency, there's some sort of initial investment, whether it's in the hardware, whether it's your time, or whether it's you just throwing some money down and saying, let's see what this coin does.
Right. Yeah, I would say anybody who's interested in starting to mine, if you already have, the easiest way is a gaming rig. So take your gaming rig, find a coin. Don't pick Bitcoin. Pick something easier where it has a large community around it. Go to whattomine.com, pick a coin that works for your rig, and then try it out, because it is a rabbit hole that gets super complicated if you want it to. If you want to keep it simple, you can keep it very simple. And once you've figured out the basics of how the software works, how the configuration works, how which temperatures to keep your card at, and which softwares to use. I didn't even talk about that. I apologize, but because your hardware it will die at some point. So next thing you know, you might have to be replacing everything. So I would start with that first before you hop deep into it, just like any other business. If you're not willing to spend the time to research it, you're probably going to get burnt on it. And for those people that don't want to spend the time to research it, or don't have the desire for it, I can see them getting burnt out quickly and be like, I wasted a ton of money. So
Recently, with the surge of the Bitcoin price, there's been I know it happened to you. I know it happened to me. It happened to almost everyone that I know. Hey man, what's up with this crypto? Or I'm trying to get some Bitcoin. Those types of questions. Well, there were people which I told them last year, in the beginning of last year, you want to go get a wallet. Whatever you do, just get a wallet first. And then after you get the wallet, we'll start talking about what to do. I'm going to say all but maybe 0.01% of those people took my advice to open up a wallet, which is the simplest step, which is, if you're serious, it's free and it takes all but 5 minutes. So anyone who doesn't want to do it is kind of like, well, maybe they don't take it that seriously.
Right.
Well, a few months ago, one of the big things that happened was I know people still pending on exchanges. They're trying to get wallets, but they can't access, or they can't get approved, or there's just a lot of pending wallets, and some people can't get into crypto right now. Not as easily as they could have a few months ago.
Right.
And in my mind, that made me think, hey, that's a business opportunity. I see everything as a business opportunity.
Sure.
But to me, it's like, all right, all of a sudden you have all these people with an interest in crypto, and now they have trouble opening a wallet. How can I turn that into a business? And that's why I guess I look at the mining thing the same, because that's another question that I keep getting over and over. It's something that I tried, and it's something that I technically believe in.
Well, one of the benefits of the mining actually is, it's a very valid point. If you go to, and no offense to Coinbase, I'm not a huge fan of Coinbase because of the fees. The fees are just outrageous. I did a post on it one time where I was on the phone with a friend, and to get on the premium that they make you pay, and then at the discount that they make you sell it at is just it's almost criminal, but whatever. That's beside the point. But that's the number one thing. Friends are like, oh, I want to get on now. And I'm like, yeah, well, if you want to do that, you're going to have to use like a debit card or credit card, and the fees are even higher at that point. But the benefit of mining is your money or your crypto money is available instantaneously. So whenever I see a movement in a coin that I like and I want to get in and maybe swing trade it, which I don't do that much swing trading, but if I wanted to, I immediately have the funds readily available. And my mining rig is constantly just shoving more and more crypto into my wallet. And so whenever I'm ready to hop on something, I can do it. Where another friend of mine might say, hey, I'm going to hop on Litecoin now. I'm like, yeah, well, good luck. You'll have to wait a week. So that is the benefit of the mining side of things.
So, yeah. And I was thinking about that. You were talking about mining directly into an exchange.
Mm-hmm.
When you first started doing it, did you mine into an exchange, or did you mine into like I don't want to say a hardware wallet, but just like a standalone wallet?
So I initially mined into my Siacoin wallet on my desktop, and then from there, when I wanted to sell, I would transfer it over to the exchange. My Genesis mining currently right now, I think I send it to Bittrex. So every day I just kind of look at it and see it pop up in there. You just have to be careful. Certain exchanges, and I don't know why this is, but certain exchanges like Cryptopia, for example, will not accept from a mining pool directly into their wallet. So I've never tested it. I've never found out whether or not they would just lose my money, but they claim not to do that.
Have you ever sent any money that just never made it?
No. It almost happened the other day when Binance went down, and I transferred money, not a lot, but I transferred money from Cryptopia over to Binance, and it pinned there for about 48 hours.
So with me, I had some SWT, Swarm City tokens, ERC20. So that's on the Ethereum blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
And never been to, I just didn't know exactly how to send it, because at this point I was a novice.
Mm-hmm.
But so I decided to send it to an Ethereum wallet, and it just it disappeared. I've yet to see it. In fact, I think there was like 1.3 million blocks or something, and only 3,000 have been confirmed.
Did you check it on the Block Explorer by chance?
Yeah, I checked it on Etherscan.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to etherscan.io. So Etherscan is a website that you can go to where, and this is something that's interesting, and I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but we're talking about sending money. So when you send money via ACH using your bank to pay a bill or just sending it to someone else, you can't actually sit and watch on the back end what's going on with the money. So you send the money to the bank and you wait,
Mm-hmm.
and then you hope that the person gets it. When you're sending money with cryptocurrency, everything lives on the blockchain and is visible, at least the confirmations. So if I send some Ethereum from myself to Chuck here, what's going to happen is I can, did I say Ethereum? Or crypto. Okay. If I send Ethereum, I can go to etherscan.io, which is a blockchain explorer, and you can type in the address that you're sending it to or from, or you can type in the TX ID, which is the transaction ID, and you can sit and see that money as it slowly, that currency, as it slowly comes from your wallet, as it's getting confirmed, into his wallet. So you can actually watch. Like, it's funny because I can go, my money that's just dangling somewhere in the blockchain, I can go and see it, and I know that, okay, I have like $100-something here, but it's just sitting there.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird feeling when it happens. I have been told too, I've never had this happen, but I have been told if you want to play it super safe, and let's say you're moving from exchange to exchange, they say to always actually use your like a desktop wallet as a middleman. And the reason that I've heard behind that is because if something does go wrong, each exchange will point fingers at each other. So if you send it directly to a wallet, they claim it's extra proof, and I don't know. I've never run into that issue. But for an extra safety, if you're I always say this: if you're about to send a lot of money, whatever you consider a lot of money, I always send a little bit first, double check to make sure it gets there, and if it works, then I, at that point, push all in. But I'm always very, very cautious before I send a lot.
I can tell you that for sure. Like, I have several wallets on my desktop, and I send money there quite often. In fact, more often than not, there's very little time that I used to actually sit on my desktop, but now that I send money, via the cryptocurrency, I send it to my desktop, and I don't know why. There's no method behind it other than the fact that I feel like I like the security that I have on my system, and I like that. But one of the things that you mentioned means a lot is to send a very little. When I first started sending myself money, I was so uncertain that it would ever show up. I sent the first time I sent myself any Bitcoin, I sent $1 worth of Bitcoin from my BitShares wallet. In fact, and it took like 4 hours to confirm. But I didn't feel so bad about it because I could sit and watch it. And I got notifications like, oh, this is the current state of your transaction. This was back when you could actually send $1. Nowadays you can't.
Oh, yeah.
You can't send $1.
$25 or something minimum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I did that, and I did that because I was about to send myself a few grand, and I didn't know how to move it. So that was my way of testing it, and I tested it more than once. Believe me, I think I might have sent myself $1 like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, okay, that's how it works. Now I could send it to me. So that's why we do this show, is to give that type of information, because you could put money into an exchange and you'll see it, but then at some point you'll want to get it out. And there's methods that we all use, and I think generally we all kind of do the same thing. We send a little bit and then we send a lot. Like what that does is that allows you to test the system, and it also gives you faith in the system. So as you put money down and you see it grow, or if you mine and as you see your mining earnings grow, you could sit there and then feel comfortable about sending the money to yourself. In fact, I would send crypto without batting an eye, just kind of believing in the technology behind it more so than ACH. In fact, I paid someone to do some web development for me. And then when he sent me a bill, I was like, will you take Bitcoin? And believe it or not, he actually had a wallet. He knew nothing about, he had a wallet, but he had no money in it. But that was his first opportunity to engage.
To accept it.
In a cryptocurrency transaction. And since then, we've been in contact, and he's asking me all these questions, about new coins, ICOs, and things of that nature. And I'm like, dude, it's an ever-changing environment,
it's ever moving. Can I throw in 2 tips in there about the?
Please do.
Okay, so real quick, I posted 2 YouTube videos about this because I felt like not enough people talked about this. But 2 things. Number 1, be very careful which exchange you decide to buy a coin on. And I know you're limited. So if you go to CoinMarketCap, you can see where to buy certain coins. But some exchanges have insane fees, and I actually did a research on it one time, and I forget which coin it was. It was a pretty small one. It might have been like DentaCoin or something. And I went from one exchange, I think it was like Mercatox, where it was like 20,000. The fee was like 20,000 coins just to pull it off the exchange. And then I went to another exchange, there was only 120 coins, and I went to another exchange, there was 1. So if you have to be careful, because if you pick the wrong exchange to buy the coin on, when you try to pull it off the exchange, just to get it back to your desktop wallet, there might be a hefty fee that you'll pay. And so you've almost lost, it's pointless at that point to use certain exchanges. So what I always personally do, I find the exchange that I want to buy the coin on, I go to the exchange wallet, and then I hit withdraw. And typically, even if you don't hold the coin on the exchange yet, you can look at the fee that exchange will charge you. So you can know right up front, hey, this exchange is going to charge me a lot or not. And there's some exchanges that even charge you to put coins on the exchange. It's insane. So number 1, I always tell people, double check before you buy a coin on a particular exchange. And number 2, when you're transferring, let's say one exchange doesn't have the coin you want. So for example, let's say Bittrex doesn't have the coin you want, but Binance does. Then instead of switching and sending Bitcoin over to Binance, even though typically most time the pairings is spot in Bitcoin, I never send Bitcoin anywhere. I always switch it to a Litecoin or Ethereum or something, even like a Dogecoin, something that will be faster and the fees are much, much less. Because by the time you get it over to the new exchange, you can flip it right around for Bitcoin, and the fees are so much less than it would take to spend the time to send Bitcoin over. Pay $25 or $50 or whatever it is, maybe 10, I don't know, and then buy that coin. It's just it's not worth it, guys. So I always tell people, check the exchange first and send over, Litecoin, Ethereum, or something better than Bitcoin, and then switch it over, because it'll save you time and money for sure, I think.
That's something that I picked up on recently about not just going straight into Bitcoin at the exchange. In fact, I like using Litecoin just because it's quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, or Dash. I have Dash Wallet, but I have yet to use it other than to accept payments. I haven't sent anything from it, only received. But yeah, I've definitely, like when it comes to Steam, I'll typically send my Steam into something else and then exchange it out just for lower fees.
Yeah.
Smart thing to do.
Yeah.
But it actually took me a while to even get to that point because, although it adds an extra step and creates more time, it's a way to save money. So at this point, I'm becoming real frugal when it comes to fees and crypto.
Especially if you look at where we hope it's all going. I mean, one coin of something could be worth a lot down the road, and you're like, right now you're like, whatever. But down the road, you're like, man, I could have taken 30 extra seconds, flipped it, switched it over, and saved, or made.
Exactly.
Money, so.
Well, guys, I think you got the best advice that you could possibly get today, and Chuck was the one to deliver that message. So thank you, Chuck.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
Now, I want you to tell the listeners and the viewers, well, before you go, I want to know your favorite coin. I know we said it again, now that we're at the end. Tell me which coin to avoid.
Okay. Which one first?
Go ahead and tell me your favorite.
Favorite. Okay. Well, that's difficult, and I always say difficult because I have so many coins that I like and I want to win, and that I believe in, so to speak. I try to find coins. I have a litmus test of what I look at. I look at between the team is my number one biggest factor. I like to find teams that have real world connections, that they can pick up the phone and make a partnership with somebody, because at the end of the day, it comes down to adoption, in my opinion. If the coin can't gain enough steam, no pun intended, but get enough steam and traction, then I don't think it's going to go very far. Even though there are a lot of coins that have a lot of potential out there. So I really like Dragon Chain. I think Dragon Chain, the team behind Dragon Chain, is phenomenal. I think their ability to pick up the phone and make contacts is absolutely incredible. I still think it has a lot of room to grow, and it used to be Disney's private blockchain. So it's a pretty cool, interesting coin. I have tons of coins. I like ARK, but it's got a lot of stuff. I even like Rayblocks, but I feel like Rayblocks is one of those weird ones where, it's like, does it have the ability and to the visibility to get out there and go? I like it for various reasons. So I like Dragon Chain. I like Cardano, ARK. There's just a list of.
Well,
anyways,
but I guess for sake of argument, I'm going to say Dragon Chain.
Okay.
And in fact, I'm going to have to agree with you on that one.
Okay, good. I like that.
Yeah, being able to pick up the phone and, like you said, real world connection.
Yeah.
That we need a good deal.
Yeah.
A great deal.
There you go.
We need a Trump coin.
There you go. They have that, actually.
Do they really?
They do.
Man,
I never bought one, but they have it.
I'm falling short. Yeah, I don't think I'll buy that either.
But no, from the bad side coins, I'm not going to pick a particular coin. I would say it's just the opposite. I look at everything the same. So if they have if their team doesn't put their face out there, that kind of worries me. And I know it's all about anonymous and privacy a lot of times, but I view it as a business. If they want to thrive and flourish as time goes on, they're gonna have to get their name and their face out there. So I find, if their website looks crummy, if the traffic is terrible, if their team doesn't have any great connections, and I don't see any real world value to that coin of something that's gonna change, then I usually stay away from it.
Well, that's more good advice, man. You're like the rainmaker of good advice, I swear. All right, guys, so that does it for another edition of Crypto Talk Live. His name, by the way, on social media is, and my advice as always is HODL, don't sell, but today I'm going to say it's okay to sell so you can buy something for Valentine's Day for your love. Or if you don't have anybody, then HODL on your wallet, okay? So we'll see you again next week, Wednesday. I'm out. Crystal Gonzalez. Hey, Crystal, what's your question?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I just have I know it's kind of a silly question, but what is cryptocurrency?
Well, I'm glad you asked. There's no such thing as a silly question when it comes to cryptocurrency. Well, cryptocurrency is a medium of exchange of digital currency. Some people say that it's the currency of the future. I say it's the currency of now.